God has delivered me from that bondage, and that's why I no longer have the desire to drink, because I've been dealing with the issues and continue dealing with them, and God has been uprooting everything that needed uprooting one by one. And so I'm grateful that one day at a time I keep recovering. I'm 7 months sober, and the fact that I can sit here and smile and just be like, whoa, that happened, that was crazy, and laugh about it is just a manifestation of God's sense of humor and also what only He can do. I have had absolutely insane moments in my life, some good, some bad, but cumulatively, they've all rolled out to, the bigger plan, and they have facilitated and created spaces and moments for me to be able to get to where I am today. And as much as I can complain about so many things and also be grateful about other things, at the end of the day, every single thing has a reason. And like we said, God doesn't make any mistakes. But first, I want to take you, through my journey with my biological father, as some of you may be wondering what happened to him. And after that, I would love to share with you my turning point and how I got clean, sober, sitting here 7 months clean, happy, joyful, and grateful. My biological father, and I will say alleged biological father, because as we talk about this, we don't have any DNA results to prove that I am his child and he's my father. Secondly, he doesn't live in the country. He, moved away and has been abroad all these years. From the moment my mom actually got pregnant, been living away. But sometime back, my mother, having not seen her for such a long time, hits me up and wanted to talk. And she got to, let me know that you've been asking me about your father and your paternal roots, where you come from, and I might have an answer for you now. Which was interesting because remember, my mom never ever wanted that conversation. It seemed really painful. And so she had contacts, this guy's contacts through a mutual friend. And she told me, take this number, go hit this person, tell him who you are, tell him who I am. And just create a conversation and see what next. And so I was so nervous, but so excited. I went home and I just shot him a text on WhatsApp. And I was like, hi, Dr. So-and-so, I hear that, you don't live around. My name is Flani Flani. I'm in Nairobi, Kenya. And I am Flani Flani's daughter. And I think you're my dad. I don't know if that might have sounded weird on text. But this guy probably got so shocked because he didn't take long to reply. He replied immediately, hi, who are you? And all that. Please let me know more about you. What are you talking about? And so before I could even respond, he calls me. And so he's like, yeah, young lady, how are you? Who are you exactly? And please, let me know what this is all about. And so I gave him an explanation, and he confirmed that he did know my mom, and that, every detail my mom had given was correct about them growing up here, being neighbors and all that. And he was interested to know more about me. He asked me to send him pictures of me, some of my mom, and then scheduled a Zoom call for the next day at 11 a.m. So this is moving very chap. And I'm so excited. I'm thinking, oh man, I finally get to, see my dad. From physical comparison, I feel like I have some of my mom's features, like my ears and just different features, eyes and all that. However, looking at this man, like on the pictures and stuff, I could see where I get my height from and my body, my big bonedness and my complexion as well. That's not from my mom. And my mom, is just a very small person. And yeah, I could kind of pick out some features. I'm like, okay, probably this is it. So we do a Zoom call the next day at 11 a.m. And again, parents. There has to be some level of maturity when it comes to dealing with issues between, with each other in front of a child. Because even at my age as an adult, there's a way I'm going to watch my parents behave that could impact how I will behave when I'm married someday or when I have my own kids. And so the conversation started out well. I just needed that confirmation so that now I could delve deeper and find out, okay, where's my grandmother from this side of the family? Do I have a grandfather? Do I have cousins? Who do I have, And it went south so quickly because these two adults completely forgot that the agenda was me. This is my alleged biological father, my mom seated next to me and myself. And so he's on call and the two of us are seated talking to him. And so they completely forget that I'm there and I'm the subject and dive into their past issues. And I understand where this man's anger, was shooting from because in a way I ended up siding with him to a degree. The first question he asked was, how do you wait for 20 plus years first to tell me that I have a child, knowing that you easily could have found this child's grandmother or my family? What he was alluding to is that my mom knew where to actually find my paternal side of the family, but she chose not to. Could have been pride, could have been ego, I don't know. Second is that when I was about probably 3 or 4, they met. He came back to Kenya and they met here in Nairobi. And he even bought her coffee. And she did not mention at all that she had a child that was his. So he found that interesting, that the time, if we are calculating, right, when I was in Kenya, she must have been about 3 or 4. Why did you still not mention that you had a child by me? And her defense was that another man had already stepped up and wanted to take care of me and her. I didn't think there was any need to disrupt, the whole family dynamic, which now as a woman, I'd understand why she did that. But it was pretty selfish because then that denied me the chance to probably even grow up in a different environment. I could have gotten the chance to attend the best of schools, get a better education, have a better, life setting and not lack, let alone live with people and living like a street child, Yet I actually have a father out there who's put together. So that was also very disappointing for me, and it felt very selfish of my mother. And I was angry about it. And so his conclusion was that this woman probably has come trying to bring this child in the picture, thinking they might get an inheritance out of me. And so that's probably what he kind of thought of it, because he kept asking me, so what do you want? What do you want from me? What I can do for you right now is either get you a plane ticket, come to visit, we get a DNA test done. Or I could come to Kenya and have a DNA test so that first we could prove that you're my blood. And even the way it came out, it was more of, this person doesn't seem to have any need for me, let alone interest. And he was also bitter about the fact that if I was probably his child, the fact that another man got to raise me and give me his surname. As a man, I feel like there was some ego that was, knocked on a bit. And so I waited. My friend, I waited and waited. I started calling this man almost every other day. I'm texting him. I'm so excited. I want to know, is he coming? Am I going? How are we linking up? I just want to get to these results and find out more about my family. Until at some point I realized it doesn't make sense. He never reaches out to me. I'm the one who keeps begging. I seem to be crawling after him the way I crawled after my stepdad, the way I crawled after my mom. And that feeling was so distasteful. I hated it. I was like, why do I have to feel like I'm begging my own parent to notice me, to like me, to accept me? And because of also, just being an alcoholic and in that mindset and that frame of mind, I threw my hands in the air at some point and I was like, you know what? This man is not God. You might have donated a sperm here or there to have me living here, but God gave me life. And that's the ultimate father that I recognize. So it doesn't matter. It's fine. You haven't been in my life for over 25 years. I don't think I'll need you now. So it's well. And I found my peace with that because I was going through so much. This couldn't be another thing adding on top of all the mess that I'd been through. And so I think getting to the end and, messing up at work, showing up to work drunk, losing so much. Like I just kept losing and losing and losing to the point that I got to a place where I felt I had nothing more to lose. And I'm like, God, I've even tried taking my life a couple of times and you don't seem to want me going anywhere. So you know what? What is this? And so this very good friend of mine, who's a music producer, music director, an amazing musician. He's Nigerian, but had been living in Kenya for a long time, called Johnson Omonije. This was a friend that I'd had before I started drinking because I'd known him since, my finishing of high school, thereabout. So he knew me before, he knew me through the struggle of my family and all that, getting myself together, into alcoholism and into the cult, and after that. So he was the one person that I had there reminding me, physically there reminding me that you're bigger than these things. You can get past it. You can get past it and you can figure it out. And all these things that these people have done to you accumulatively should not, define who you are. And he never got tired of championing me because just like, it had been mentioned earlier, most times when you're in so much pain and people are trying to champion you, it might feel like they're undermining your pain and your process. But he was there constantly reminding me, but at the same time giving me tough love when it's needed. The moments when this man found me falling on my own puke, I'm so drunk, I'm blacking out, almost blacking out in the bushes, or I can't even take care of myself. I can't walk. He's getting me into the bathroom, helping me clean up after myself, getting me to bed, talking me through messy relationships that I'd had. And by this time, when we were now, because it had happened for such a long time, but now, by the time he was talking to me in recent times, this is now last year in 2023, about let's find a solution, a practical solution, and just you can't continue like this. Time is going, you're getting older, and you can't keep up like this. You have everybody that loves you run away completely. And many people have abandoned you, but some of us are still here. And you don't want to drive all of us away. So help me help you. And by the time this was happening, it's because at some point I had tried, I was so low that I had tried, trying to reach out to my family. Like, that's how desperate I was. Like, I knew I was done for, that I humbled myself to try and connect with my step family, that is, and try and figure out what is wrong with me, what's going on with me. Let me fix bits of my life that are so broken. And to prove a point, in regards to how I'm not part of their family, my older stepbrother, who is just one of the most abusive people I have known in my life, gave me the beating of my life that I have never forgotten. In fact, when people squint closer, like you'll notice there's somewhere I was sewn, because he stomped on my face. He beat me up so badly that day. And in that moment, I remember, I always say that I remember looking at him and seeing like a smiley devil that was just projecting from his face. And he found so much satisfaction in doing it, looking at me and just seeing that I'm at the lowest point of my life and that I'm nothing, which is what clearly he reminded me. And just finding satisfaction in abusing me, because basically that's just who he is. And that was now the complete end of my relationship with them and this family. So by the time my friend Johnson is intervening, it's because I'm done for. I feel done for. I have nobody at all. When this assault with my stepbrother happened and the way my father handled it, it took me back to the abuser, the man that assaulted me and kidnapped me. He still did nothing about it. And the crazy thing is, when I called a friend to pick me and take me to hospital, then go to the police station and report, I blasted him on social media because I was so angry on that day. Then I drank so much. Then I was like, this person just needs to be exposed, because what kind of nonsense is this? And my father was busy, just calling me out for putting it out there and talking about why somebody has abused me and why I have a swollen face, why I had to go to hospital and do A, B, and C, get myself checked. And the fact that family will always be family. And I realized in that moment, I can't be around abusers. And anybody who supports an abusive person is an abuser, And it's the hardest thing I had to think about when it came to my father, but it's the reality. That is why it was easy for he and my mother to abuse each other and still continue like it was nothing. And so my friend Johnson really played a huge role in trying to, I feel like God used him to soften the blow of what men looked like in my life. Because here is a man that is completely different from what I've been so used to, and is just my friend. And then again, from a male perspective, a friend who's not asking for much or forcing any issues, romantically, sexually, and all that, but somebody who genuinely just loves me, wants to see the best, come out of me and me propelling and all that. And it was just mind-blowing. It is mind-blowing till today how much he stuck with me, because I really pulled some crazy stunts where he would have had valid reason to cut me off completely. If you've dealt with a proper drunkard, sometimes, a drunkard can push your buttons a good one. But he still stood with me. And I had, a few good people around me, but this was a person that was there physically and present. And he kept insisting that I would love for you to come to our church, And my previous boss, who's also part of our church and a pastor as well, had been insisting that I also needed to work around, finding Christ and recalibrating. But since that cult incident, I wasn't really all about anybody telling me about church. And so after my birthday, that is last year in May, I'd had such a terrible beginning of the year. There were so many things I dealt with. I had been in so many abusive spaces, and I think I was just tired. And more so because I think even when people pay attention, they'll notice that I'm very scarred. And each scar on my body represents something that has happened with somebody somewhere. And I could have easily lost my life at some point between 2022 and 2023. Again, but God was so faithful, and I didn't feel like there was anything to lose after my birthday. I accepted to go to church on this particular Sunday. And I remember I was high when I went to church on that day, of course. I had more vodka in my bag as well. And I sat through the service. It was great. I enjoyed the service. I felt dirty. I felt unworthy. I felt like I was looking at everyone else and they're so put together and I'm just a mess. I'm like the stain, like when you drop when you pour a drop of ink on a white sheet and you can easily just spot that drop. And I felt like I was that I was easily noticeable in that whole crowd as the messy one. But that was just basically me overthinking, because at the end of the service, towards the end of the service, my pastor and good mentor, Pastor Flavia, made an altar call. And I felt so inclined to just take a step and go forward. And I remember just telling God, you know what? Take the wheel. I'm done. Like, I've really, really tried, kabisa, to do this on my own. I don't know what else to do. Think about playing chess and you're out of moves, or you don't even know what direction to take anymore. But if you feel done for, you can only now surrender. You are only in a space to surrender to your higher power. And so I told God, Jesus, please take the wheel. I'm done. And when I gave my life to Christ, it was interesting, because first I'm drunk. And so I'm still caught in between. If I am saved, now am I supposed to feel like the angels, chanting in that choir, kind of way? Or am I supposed to start seeing things in yellow in a different way? Like, what's happening? What should happen? And salvation, if this is the real thing, then is there something different I'm supposed to spot immediately? But I gave my life to Christ, and after church, first thing to the liquor store. I went to Naivas. So our church my church is Rockwest. That is at the Movenpeak Hotel in Westlands. And I went to Naivas, Westlands, after church, and I bought more liquor. And I just told God, I've gotten saved, I know, but someone might not get why I'm doing this, but I know you know why I'm doing this. I'm sick. I literally feel sick. I can't function. The moment I start withdrawing kidogo, it doesn't matter how little, the withdrawals are so bad, I can't survive. I'll pass out. So I need more alcohol, my next fix, so that I can function and stabilize. And so I got my mzinga. I went home. I kept drinking. That continued. A week passed. I'm still not sure how exactly I'm gonna stop, because at this point I know I really, really, I'm so desperate to just quit alcohol. It has messed up everything for me, but I don't know how to stop. And I've given my life to Christ, so isn't God supposed to work some miracle? But deep down, I guess I kind of believed. I kind of did believe, when I think about it, that somehow God will fix it. I just knew somehow He'll work through this and carry me through. I don't know how. But little did I know that a week later, I'd been invited to go back to church. And I was told that my pastor, Pastor Flavia, who had made the altar call and led me to Christ, was asking for me to go back to church and have a conversation with me. She'd been told a bit about my story and wanted to just know more about me. And so I was like, okay, well, that's cool. So Sunday fikas, I drink some more, first thing, of course. And I get to Westlands, go to Naivas, get more liquor, drink some more. Headed to church. I remember taking a walk back to the toilet at the mall, drink some more. And at this point, the higher I'm getting, the more drunk I'm getting, the less aware I am of how drunk I am, if that makes sense. So my body is just showing me I need more and more and more, because I'm used to drinking in the house till I black out. And I'm not aware that if I keep drinking the way I do in the house, I'll pass out on the street. And so my tolerance is also off the roof. At this point, I can down two mzingas quite easily before I black out. And I was already done with the first mzinga, so I was on the second, and I get to the gate and I am so wasted. I'm so wasted, and the people can notice. At some point, I was like falling, and this guy came and asked me, like, "Madam, are you okay?" I'm like, "Oh man, this is bad." So fast forward, I embarrassed myself in the way that I did, but my pastor got to know that I was really wasted, and so they came and helped me, together with a very good friend of mine as well, Elder Arn, and they carried me into her car, put me in her car, and all the way we went to her house. So we get to her house, that's in Lavington, and she tries to sober me up, but man, I'm too far gone at this point. So she puts me to bed in her guest room to sleep it off, then maybe we could talk later. And so at this point, I black out for hours and hours and wake up in the middle of the night. So when I wake up, first I'm in shock because I'm startled, like, okay, where am I? But then remember that, oh, I was with Pasi, I'm here at her place. And the first thing I go looking for her and asking her is, please, can you allow me to go out and get a drink? I need more alcohol. And so she's like, no, that's not the solution. Come, let me sit here. Let me tell you something. She asked me, you realize you have a problem. Do you agree? And I was like, yes, I have a drinking problem. I have an alcohol problem. I've known I've had a problem for a while. But at this point, I don't know what to do. I've tried getting clean. It just hasn't worked. I've tried to stay sober. It just doesn't work. And at this point, I'm too far gone that I feel like I've given up. I feel like I'm cursed. My mom is an alcoholic. I feel like it's just a generational curse that's following me. And she just told me something really wonderful, really powerful, and I'll never get tired of saying this. She told me, Shyro, always remember that anything you go through is God giving you the authority to speak in that facet. And so as much as I was so confused in that moment, because of course I wondered, does this woman know what she's talking about? I mean, does she know how far gone I am? But it was so deep, and I think it gave me some level of ease. It lightened my heart a bit to the probability that maybe it's true. Maybe this is for a bigger picture. Maybe this is more than just me, And how God works in mysterious ways is that around the same time my mom had reached out to me. My mom had just called me and she asked me, are you okay? And remember, we don't really have a relationship. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to lie to my mom or play egotistical, proud games of why are you looking for me now? Why are you? I knew in that moment that a mother's instincts, that's the God in her. That's God manifesting in her, just trying to remind me, hey, you're not alone the way you think. And so that's how I got to link up with my mother and tried to get her to, know some of the things that were happening. I remember we had a conversation about how being abused by my stepbrother, all these things that had happened, the cult, all that, the abusive relationship that I was in with a man I dated at some point, where I was brutally beaten up and just abused and gaslighted so badly into believing that I deserved it because I was an alcoholic and that I was a problem because I'm just a drunkard. And I remember my mom just telling me, I didn't give birth to you for other people to kill you. you know? And it sounded like such a joke to hear that, maybe if there's someone to kill you, I'd be the one. I brought you into this world, I can take you out of it. But I got the humor in it, but I also understood what she was trying to tell me, And I think all those little things were the small things that came together to try and like give me a wake up call. Like, hey, who are you living your life for? Is it for your mom, for your brother, for your dad, for these people in this cult, for the music, for God, for who? You know? It's been a very long time at this point. When I think of when I'd last spoken to my mother or seen my mom, on a general scale, we had been estranged for 13 years because we hadn't really had a relationship or a connection from the moment I was 15 in my third year of high school when we were, separated. And in between, I, of course, did see her very few times, but from time to time. However, we didn't really have a relationship. And the one or two times we tried connecting and talking, including that time my biological dad situation had tried happening. Since I was an alcoholic at the time, and my mom is also an alcoholic, bring two alcoholics that are very bitter with one another together, it was bad. It was bad. At some point, we completely cut base with each other because we said some insane things to each other. And at this point, because I'm more of an adult than I was when I lived with her, I felt entitled to also voice my opinion. And so if she throws the whole old venting, way of going about things as you are a mistake, you ruined my life would have been on a different trajectory. I also felt entitled to bring forth, you're a terrible mother, you're an alcoholic, you ruined my life and my brother's life. And yet while I'm telling her that, I'm also drunk, the irony of it all. And so when she reached out and wanted to know how I am, I just softened towards her. I think, to be honest, when I think about it, I think God just gave me the whooping that I needed to humble me. I think basically God just manifested in a way where he was like, Shyro, get off your high horse. You've always put this woman down for the exact same thing that you're battling. Now, do you actually see what she was going through? And I feel like I was somewhere floating with God and just looking down and just being like, whoa, so this is what my mom had been going through all this time. So this is how hard it is to quit alcohol. So it's not just about people shouting at you and telling you, you have kids, stop drinking. You have a job, stop drinking. You have responsibilities, stop drinking. It wasn't that she was drinking and choosing that life because she didn't want to do any better for me and my siblings. It's that she couldn't, and she didn't know how. And to make it worse, I feel like I've had a better support system than she did. I've had so much more favor when it comes to my social settings and support groups than she did, And more so, I'm trying to imagine becoming an alcoholic in my 20s. I don't have kids. I wasn't married. So I always felt entitled to just say, you know what, if you can't stay around me, just go. I don't need anybody. But I'm trying to imagine if I had kids, how much more harder that would have been, and heartbreaking and shameful, and the guilt. And so in that moment, I was able to be honest with my mom, and I just told her, I'm not good. I have issues here and there. All these things have happened. And so back to my pastor being in her house on this day, that night, that was June 18th, when she gave me the word that she gave me, she asked me, can you stay and wait, please, until morning? I want to take you to a doctor that you could go and see, and we could get you treated. And I was like, sure. At this point, I was so desperate for help. I was willing. In fact, I was joking the other day and telling my pastor, Pastor Don, if I was to be shipped to Alaska, I didn't care. Let me tell you, if you're to take me to Russia, I don't know where to live for 5 years, meaning I get sober, I was gonna do anything and everything. I would have sold a kidney for it, for just that assurity that I could get sober, because I was tired of that life. I was exhausted. And so I suffered through that night. The withdrawals were insane. She brought me a bucket. I was just puking through the night, the fever, the sweats, the shakes. It was a mess. Got to the morning. Then we go to Riverside to meet this wonderful doctor who's called Dr. Paul, Mr. Paul. He's the owner of the rehabilitation center that I went to, called the Genesis Sober Community in Kiambu, Githunguri area. And the first thing was that he noticed when I ordered, because I couldn't have breakfast, I couldn't eat, no appetite, nothing. I was so thin, so skinny, and just pale and done for, with an injured foot. And I ordered for passion juice. And when the juice came, I could barely hold it because I was just shaking. And now I'm scared and embarrassed to break the glass. So he took some time to assess me and came to the conclusion that I needed to be an in-house patient. I needed help. I needed medical help. First, to be able to stabilize my body by detoxing me and all that, as well as, you know, getting therapy to be able to deal with all the issues and the things that had happened to me. And the root cause, getting to the root cause of my drinking and substance abuse. And if you remember very well, I had mentioned that, you know, from childhood, it was using food to cope. Then it switched to, you know, from bulimic tendencies into obsessive gymming and working out. And I became obsessive about that, getting into CrossFit and all these shenanigans that also enriched, then depleted my body. And then that crossed over to, I was a workaholic at some point. It was just my job. The one thing that I worshipped was just my work, all that, and into alcoholism. So it feels like at every point of my life, there's always been something I latch onto to just cope. And so this time, when I started learning the things I did, I made it very intentional that I have to stay very aware of anything around me that could become the next coping mechanism. And I was very hungry and thirsty for all that information and knowledge. And so he made me understand how the program works. I agreed to go to rehab. And we didn't even wait. That same day, that was June 19th, 2023. Hallelujah, praise Jesus. I got a chance to go to rehab. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because, let me tell you, if you have been to a rehabilitation center, this stuff is not cheap. It doesn't come cheap. And I don't even have a shilling to my name at this point, because any last coin I had, I promise you it was just for alcohol. You know, as I try and figure out my life, and that is me convincing myself I'm trying to figure out my life, but the truth is that I just want to drink, the next drink and the next drink and the next drink. So my pastor and my friend Elder Ann, my friend Johnson, my boss that was my boss and still my very good mentor, father and pastor, Dr. Peter Dera, as well as our pastor in church, Pastor Iganjo, and the man himself, our head pastor, Pastor Don Gishane at Rock West, among other people behind the scenes at Rock West. All these people came together and decided to actually foot my bill in rehab. And they paid every single cent to the last of it to make sure that I got the treatment. I got every single thing I needed, every basic thing I needed on that day sorted out. I was taken all the way there. Everything was sorted out, and my assessment was happening in the morning. By 4 p.m., I was already in rehab. And of course, in those few hours, I was trying to connive and figure out how I can probably get that last drink. But I was also so desperate to get help that at some point I thought about it. I was like, okay, no, it's not worth it. Let me just do this once and for all, suffer through it and get it done with. And so that June 19th, that was on a Monday, I get to rehab at 4 p.m. And I remember I got in, and the first thing I'm seeing are all these men just lifting weights and working out. And I'm not seeing any female. And so I was scared at first. So I asked the person next to me, "Hey, why are we not seeing any ladies?" So that is why, turns out, the stigmatization that I talked about earlier, there are not so many women who are brought forth when it comes to diseases like addiction and alcoholism or substance abuse. So I found it interesting that I only found 2 ladies there, and I was the third in between all these men. And I tried to gel in. My first week in rehab was terrible. I was sick almost every day because, I'm being detoxed and all these medication is pumped into my system to be able to allow the alcohol, get out my system. And so the withdrawals mixed with just the medication, working through. It was so bad and so crazy that by the end of that first week, I got so sick. I had to be taken at night from rehab to hospital because I was in too much pain. It was so bad. But my will to get sober and get clean, I believe, was much stronger. I suffered through it, but I didn't have any second guessing. I knew this is what I wanted. And especially because all these people have come together just to do this for me. Wow. I mean, that's God. That's God right there, And in my drunk moments when I would drink and I'm crying to God, I'm drinking and I'm like, Lord, I hate this feeling. I'm just an alcoholic. Why can't you just get me out of this? This is too heavy a burden. And in that moment, I'm like, those moments I used to cry to God and cry for help. This is what He's offered. So we're pushing through. And I did my 3 close to 4 months in treatment, in rehab, and it was a great experience. I got to learn so much about, addiction, the healing process, doing all these classes, group therapy, one-on-one sessions, basically also being helped to recalibrate your lifestyle, jumpstart yourself. It's all in the little things like waking up, working out, making your bed, getting sunshine. Some things we hear and they sound so cliche, but they are literally the small things that add up, to the bigger collective thing. And I gained so much weight. I think I gained close to 20 kgs when I was there because I was so thin. And then because of eating healthy and on medication for a month, I was on different types of medication to help with hallucinations, sleep paralysis, just very many different things to reset your system. And you're eating healthy, so your body, I'm naturally an endomorph, and I'm big boned, so the body just came back. And I'd be working out with guys and just it was just fun and great. Meeting different people, understanding how many people out there are also suffering from different substance abuse. And that was a great experience, and I thank God. And fast forward, I left the treatment center. That was in October, end of October, and all the Octobers prior, like all that bad stuff had been happening. I was kidnapped in October. The cult situation, I mean, it happened after the kidnapping, so that my issue with my stepmom, how I moved from my father's house, that was October. And even all these other Octobers, they were just funny things. Yeah, this was the first October where something really amazing happened. So I got out in October. That shapes it pretty well. And I think what I'd say the highlight was in my last week of rehab, like I'd mentioned, I got to watch, Rebecca Machelli's story on your platform, which was part of our afternoon class. And, I was so enlightened, so inspired. I was so blown away. Like, who is this who can speak so raw and so honest about her story and not be ashamed? Like, it removed so much shame on my story that I realized, whoa, I thought I'd seen it. Man, this girl has been through it. And God just had to have it that a week after I was home from rehab, I go for this TVC audition, and while I'm in line, somebody taps me. And when I turn, it's her. And I was such a groupie. I was like, oh my God, I know you, I know you, I know you, I know you. And I think she must have wondered, who's this crazy girl? How do you know me? We got to talking, exchanged contacts. And fast forward, we talked. She took me out for lunch. We shared more about ourselves, became very good friends. And more so because we were both Christians and born again, I felt that it was really important for me to now become very woke when it comes to the women that I surround myself with. And she seemed to be that angel that God just threw my way. And also being fresh out of rehab, there was so much fear initially. Like, who do I talk to? Who do I not talk to? Where do I go? Where do I not go? Am I going to live a normal life? Do I have to be locked in? I can't afford to disappoint anybody. What do I do? And she's really helped me so far to realize that my recovery journey is not just sobriety from a scientific perspective, but this is deliverance. God has delivered me from that bondage. And that's why I no longer have the desire to drink, because I've been dealing with the issues and continue dealing with them. And God has been uprooting everything that needed uprooting one by one. And she has helped me and made me see that, that can make you walk in so much fierceness, with so much power and strength and freedom. Yeah, because there'll always be doubters out here. There are people who've given me the energy of, you're just a drunkard, you'll be back. Or I'm waiting to see you fall. And I just found it amazing that that transition happened in that kind of way. And I just want to thank you so much for your platform, because that was already a gateway and a channel. And, even for you, if you didn't accept your calling, if you didn't accept the assignment, then you wouldn't have opened the doors for some of us to be able to integrate and with each other in the society, and just connecting people. Like, you literally connected two people that you had no personal relationship with either prior. And that's God's divine work. So that has basically just been the journey. And while I went to rehab, only my church community knew that I was there. I didn't tell people, including my mom. My mom found out I was in rehab a month after I'd stayed in rehab. That's when I called her to let her know. And she showed up for me very strong and fiercely, and she was visiting. She's done therapy with me. She took time to, just hear out, like, what is this thing? What is this girl struggling with? And I do not place my recovery on her, because she has to go through her own journey. And so I can't talk about her journey now with alcohol, because I feel like every single person has a way of finding themselves. And this is more so about me. But our relationship has been in a very good place. Through therapy, we've been able to forgive, to heal, to understand each other better. Probably not 100%, but enough to be able to be like, okay, where do we start from? Let's be friends. And because of our age difference not being that much, I still can't say that it's the easiest thing for us to do mother-daughter. It's easier for us to do friends. kind of thing, you know. I find that motherhood mentorship from different women in my space, but my mom has been amazing and doing the best she can. And I just thank God, because at the end of it all, the one thing that really tore us apart is the one thing that brought us together. And so I'm grateful that one day at a time, I keep recovering. I'm 7 months sober, and I'm really, really in a space where I'm so excited to see where God is taking me, because now I realize this is much bigger than myself. And the fact that I can sit here and smile and just be like, whoa, that happened, that was crazy, and laugh about it is just a manifestation of God's sense of humor, and also what only he can do. And I'm hoping that other people out here are able to understand it doesn't matter what you're going through. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter what has been done to you. At the end of the day, as long as you really just hold on to hope, because without hope, I don't think there will be anything left. There's nothing bigger than God, and he knows the end from the beginning and beginning to the end. So we just gotta keep moving. And one last thing I want people to remember is that we're built with the capacity to handle the pressure that comes with our calling individually. And so I feel like most times we fail because we do the comparison thing. And comparison is the thief of joy. I'm looking at one person and I want my, let's say, recovery to be in that line. But that I have no business being, in that lane, because that's not mine. And so I feel that at the end of the day, we have to really shut the noise that comes from the outside, and especially with social media, where we're always looking at other people's lives. We're depressed in our own homes. You're in bed just drinking or smoking weed and just looking at, this celebrity's life or your friend's life and just wondering, why is it not me? Instead of taking time to just go before the Lord and asking the Lord, why is it not me? And if it is not, what is the assignment right now before the next thing that I'm hoping for? And so some things don't really need prayer all the time. They need discipline, because sometimes God has told you what to do. You're just not listening. And thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm truly honored and humbled to be here and just being able to share with you. And more so, grateful that you've created a platform that has been a channel of healing, because without even realizing, it's helped, a chunk of my life, and it continues to do so. And I'm happy that I can be a part of it and add on to that healing for other people. So thank you so much.